This footage captures the last ever public appearance of Hollywood sex therapist Amie Harwick before her murder in February of 2020. A subsequent investigation into her death will require police to go back years in time, in the process revealing a spine-chilling truth that the same night this footage was taken, her killer was just feet away, and he'd been watching her for almost a decade. Before we begin, we would like to send our deepest sympathies to the loved ones of Dr. Amie Harwick, who fell victim to the horrifying events described in this case. It's late on the evening of Valentine's Day 2020, and Dr. Amie Harwick, a prominent Hollywood family and relationship therapist, has just returned home from an evening with friends at a burlesque show. 38-year-old Amie lives in the Hollywood Hills, one of LA's most iconic and exclusive neighborhoods. In the 17 years since she moved to LA from her hometown of Lansdale, Pennsylvania, Amie has accomplished a great deal. She earned a master's degree in clinical psychology and a doctorate in human sexuality, the credentials needed to become a licensed family and relationship therapist. She opened her own family and relationship therapy clinic in West Hollywood, her own YouTube channel, written and published a book, and founded a networking movement for women. She also works for numerous charities and makes regular guest appearances on morning show programs, documentaries, podcasts, and reality TV shows.
Who are your typical patients? Are they people in relationships? Are they singles? And what are you treating them for?
Yeah, so as a licensed marriage and family therapist, I see all kinds of different things. So I just don't talk about sex all day, which some people think I do, but people either come to me because there's a sexuality related thing or because, anxiety, depression, change of life stuff, breakups, moves, things like that.
Her side gigs and social life are even more colorful and risque. Amie had found herself a place in the Hollywood goth rock scene and regularly does the rounds at go-go dancing venues, metal concerts, and burlesque clubs. She is known for her vintage-inspired film noir fashion sense and for dating metal musicians, at one point dating Marilyn Manson. A friend describes her as a therapist by day and a go-go dancer by night. One evening, she'll be doing a fire-breathing performance at the Playboy Mansion, and the next day, lecturing at Pepperdine University. They also describe her as brilliant, driven, and empathetic. Everyone who meets her wants to be her friend. People say that she's a rarity in Hollywood, authentic, smart, and genuinely caring.
She was intelligent, she was funny, she was outgoing, she was well-spoken. As far as people go that you run into in LA, there's not many like her.
She also had a penchant for the dark and macabre, from magic to taxidermy to death and true crime. She once bought murder victim Sharon Tate's bra at an auction. She finds a certain comfort in darkness, her friends said. Like everyone, she has her demons. The adopted child of two loving parents, she describes herself as having abandonment issues which make her particularly vulnerable for abusive relationships.
It's really interested in the serial killer stuff and all the macabre things. As an adolescent, I would walk around with true crime because I was always interested in human behavior.
For Amie, true crime has always brought a lightness to her life. She could never have imagined that her own story would end up that way. On the morning of Valentine's Day 2020, Amie goes for a sunrise walk with one of her good friends, Cleopatra Slow. They walk through the winding streets of the Hollywood Hills before stopping for breakfast at the Beechwood Cafe.
She was pointing out all these different landmarks she liked, telling me different history about the neighborhood.
They stopped for breakfast at the Beechwood Cafe.
She talked a lot about how happy she was, how she felt really accomplished and happy with where she was in life.
Amie is looking forward to the night that they have planned for that day. It includes a burlesque show where her good friend, known as Miss Tosh, is performing. She meets her friends there at 7:30 p.m. A friend will later notice in a photo that she is wearing rosary beads with a crucifix and wonders if Amie had a sense of foreboding. After the show, she heads with friends to the chic Nomad Hotel for tea before leaving for home, where she arrives just before 1 a.m. Once there, she messages with a friend of hers for more than a decade, Robert Koshland. They have a trip planned to the UK, and he has sent her a link to a restaurant in Edinburgh. She replies that the restaurant looks cool. At 1:02 a.m., she messages a friend from that night asking for photos of the green couch at the Nomad. Then she heads up to her bedroom on the 3rd floor. Minutes later, her roommate, Michael Herman, jolts awake. Screams are coming from Amie's room upstairs.
It was a glass plate hitting the floor or breaking when it hit the floor.
And then the second time you woke up, what woke you up?
Amie screaming. I don't know how else to describe it, but it was blood-curdling screams. It was just...
It takes him a moment to comprehend that something terrible is happening. Panicked, he searches and fails to find his phone. From the stairs, he can hear the sounds of struggle and bodies falling to the floor. Amie screams before being muffled. Fearing the intruder has a gun, he shouts up the stairs for the person to leave her alone, then runs outside, climbs a metal fence to get to a neighbor's house. He pounds on 2 neighbors' doors before he locates someone on the street who calls 911. It's now 1:14 a.m. The call comes through to dispatch at 1:16 a.m.
911 emergency operator 609.
Yeah, I wonder why it's taking the cops so long to get here.
Can you provide me the address so I can look it
Yeah,
up?
2086 Mound Street.
0118.
It's absolutely incredible.
Seconds. Has something changed since you originally called?
What now? What?
Has anything changed since you originally called?
Yes, he's not answering. Like I'm outside her fucking window yelling and nobody's answering. You guys need to get a cop here quick.
Sir, the officers are on the way.
Officers arrive to find a disheveled Michael panicking and injured from climbing the fence. Before entering the residence, they find Amie's body crumpled on the ground beneath the 3rd-story balcony. She is clinging to life, struggling to breathe and unresponsive. Police notice she has deep bruising around her neck, suggesting that she was strangled before being thrown from the balcony above. She is rushed to the nearest hospital, but at 3:26 a.m. is pronounced dead. Homicide detectives immediately begin the task of collecting evidence, interviewing neighbors, and searching for surveillance footage. In Amie's bedroom, they find evidence of a struggle, from blood on a doorway to a trail of scattered rosary beads that leads all the way to the balcony, where they find a syringe full of what would later turn out to be a lethal dose of liquid nicotine. Downstairs, a glass panel from a French door has been broken, suggesting that someone broke into the residence. Michael, Amie's roommate, recalls that earlier in the night, around 9 p.m. that evening, he had been in his room when he heard the sound of what he thought may be glass or a plate breaking. He thought it was Amie.
Like a dish or glass dish like falling to the floor.
And where were you when you heard this?
I was downstairs.
Did it wake you up, or were you already awake when you heard the sound?
No, it woke me up.
It was that loud?
Yeah.
So you wake up to the sound that sounds like something's breaking, and what do?
First, I wait and listen, and because I thought Amie dropped a plate, or maybe the cat had knocked the plate over, and then I heard what I thought was Amie cleaning it up and walking over my bedroom.
Surveillance footage of the neighborhood shows a white man dressed in black heading towards Amie's residence. Security cameras outside Amie's and a neighbor's house show the same man tampering with the camera. It's 8:53 p.m. The next time he appears, it's 1:11 a.m. Police deduce that the man in the footage broke into Amie's house soon after the first footage was recorded and then lay in wait for her for 4 hours. He attacked just after 1:02 a.m. They estimated that she fought for her life around 6 minutes. He had then thrown her over the balcony and left, passing by the camera once again at 1:11 a.m., which left just one burning question. Who was the man in the footage?
I talked to the police. They said, is there someone that that could have done this? I was like, oh yeah, it's Gareth.
Amie's best friend, Robert Koshland, is referring to 41-year-old Gareth Pursehouse. Police are about to learn a lot about Gareth. Over the years, so much more could have been done to save Amie. Amie met Gareth at a 2010 party where they were introduced by Amie's friend Grace Stanley. Gareth was a photographer for the adult entertainment industry and worked for Track Entertainment and BE Entertainment. 6 feet 4 inches tall with a gem-honed body and a chiseled jaw, her friend thinks he looks like any one of a million other Ken doll clones that flock around Hollywood hoping to make it big as an actor or model or comedian. As it so happens, Gareth did have aspirations of becoming a comedian.
Yes, one more time for Gareth, everybody. Come on.
I have bad news for the entertainers over there. The best day of your career is going to be the days after you die.
He is vastly different from Amie's usual Sunset Strip metal type, but Amie likes him. He's smart and educated, with a day job as a software engineer. Friends describe him as energetic and friendly and always amped up, but with a goofy side. On Twitter, he likes to tweet about one of his favorite television shows, the classic Star Trek. In one tweet, he writes, "I'm not a crazed Star Trek fan, but I'd seriously debate naming my kids Locutus." He also likes to post on Facebook random videos of himself.
Look at me like I'm a crazy person when I do this, but I don't care.
Okay, Game of Thrones, first season. The brother and sister are up in the castle, and then the kid sees him through the window, and the brother has to go and throw the kid off and to kill him. And even though it's evil, I feel kind of bad for the brother because even though he doesn't want to do it, his sister insisted.
But Amie's friends are not always enamored by Gareth's energetic and goofy ways. One friend says that he spooks her. She goes so far as to say that he reminds her of Ted Bundy because he is blandly good-looking with empty eyes. She says of Gareth, "He did a lot of mirroring. You say, 'I love chocolate milkshakes.' And he would say, 'Oh my God, I love chocolate milkshakes.'" For her good friend Tommy Vex, the frontman of Bad Wolves, Gareth is just bland. Something else that bothers them too, Amie's friends noticed that Gareth is overly solicitous of Amie. He seems obsessed with her, and they notice that she's seeing less of her friends. They don't know it yet, but Gareth's dad, Paul, has just had 2 restraining orders taken out against him by his ex-fiancée, Deborah Vale. 69-year-old Vale, a real estate broker, claims that when she'd ended the relationship with Paul, he had begun harassing her by phone, email, in person, and through her friends. Could obsessive, unstable behavior run in the family? Her friends say that Amie finds his excessive attention flattering. His need of her taps into her abandonment issues, her friend Vex thinks. Within months, Amie began complaining about Gareth, and in early 2011, she ends the relationship. Rudy Torres, a friend of both Amie and Gareth, recalls, when they broke up, he didn't take it well at all. He'd do stupid stuff and say stupid stuff. You'd tell him, "Move on, dude, leave her alone," and he wouldn't. He just continued to send her weepy messages. He always wanted to know where she was at, and he wouldn't take no for an answer. Things were about to get much worse. Amie confesses to friends that for months now she has been physically and emotionally abused by Gareth. In a restraining order filed by Amie in 2011, she describes Gareth as choking, suffocating, pushing her, kicking her, dropping her on the ground, restraining her, slamming her head into the ground, and punching her with a closed fist. She writes, "He has told me he hits me because I make him so mad. He refused to get help while in the relationship. Surprisingly, the order is denied for a lack of evidence. She voices to her friends her fears of Gareth and that she's worried about what he might do. A year after they split, he was still harassing her and repeatedly breaks into her apartment. On one occasion, he smashes 10 picture frames. Another time, tapes 4 dozen roses to her front door. One night, he stands outside of her door for hours playing music. She again files for a restraining order, alleging that he had pulled her out of a car, given her a bloody nose, and left her on the freeway. This time, a Superior Court judge bars him from having any contact with her for 5 years. Amie works hard to recover from the trauma of their short-lived relationship. She finishes her doctorate and becomes a licensed marriage and family therapist. Soon, she has reestablished her vibrant and busy social life. She forgets about Gareth, but he never forgets about her. As the years pass, someone continues to terrorize Amie. She believes it's Gareth, but she can't prove it. Her home is burgled and photo albums are taken. Then a copy of her Maxim magazine photo spread and her laptop. Derogatory anonymous messages are posted online and to her friends, aimed at sabotaging her friendships, career, and reputation. Occasionally, she mentions to friends that she is scared of her stalker ex. Even casual friends come to know that there is a particular guy that Amie is afraid of. But she tries to focus on the long-neglected niche in which she is professionally flourishing. Therapy for people with marginalized sexual identities, such as sex workers or those in the kink communities, who often find it difficult to find mental health treatment that doesn't involve a degree of judgment. Then, in the summer of 2017, she was at a Hollywood party when she crosses paths with Drew Carey, the famous comedian turned host of The Price is Right. The two click, and they have their first date at Disneyland. What follows is a whirlwind romance. Within months, they are engaged, and Carey chooses Valentine's Day to announce their engagement on his show.
I'd like to introduce you to my brand new lovely fiance, Amie. How you doing, Amie?
But there is a downside to the relationship that causes slow-growing friction. They have different communication styles, Amie tells friends, and in the background is another gnawing concern: Carey's fame. Amie is concerned that Gareth will be triggered every time there is news of her and Carey in the press. Anytime there is a celebrity event, 2 days later, an anonymous post would appear on a site reviewing doctors, criticizing her and her practice. She is worried her career will be ruined. In November of 2018, the couple agreed to part ways. It is the first time Amie's friends see her truly devastated by a breakup. But by early 2020, she is bouncing back. On the evening of January 17, 2020, Amie and her friend Hernando Chavez pull up in a limousine outside of the annual XBiz Awards. It is an adult industry gala and awards event, which this year was hosted by porn legend and recent high-profile individual Stormy Daniels. Amie is scheduled to appear as a panelist and a representative of an organization called Pineapple Support, which focuses on helping sex industry workers with their mental health issues. Amie and Hernando wait in a queue for the red carpet. Hernando goes and gets drinks for them while they wait, leaving her to chat with Aspen Jameson, an adult film star. They are still waiting when a familiar voice says, "Fancy running into you." It's Gareth Pursehouse, the man she has come to call her crazy ex. Amie hasn't seen him in 8 years, but tonight he's there on a photography gig after a 5-year hiatus. Shortly after his split with Amie, he went underground, taking a job as a lead architect at Internet Brands. His friend, Alana Evans, is among the first to notice him and greets him with a hug, but remembers he became cagey when asked where he had been for so long. His greeting of Amie is far less friendly. In fact, he is fuming and shaking, according to Aspen Jameson. Suddenly, he's also shouting.
Continued for the 2 to 3 minutes would you say his tone was still angry?
Yes.
You said he called her a hypocrite. Did he curse at her at any time during that 2 to 3 minutes?
Yes.
Could you describe any words or recall any curse words that he used at Amie during this time?
Something along the lines of, "You fucking ruined my life."
And could you tell me the volume at which he was speaking?
It was pretty loud, and everybody kind of started looking over, and she seemed embarrassed, so she tried to calm him down and kind of take the conversation elsewhere so people weren't staring at her.
Aspen calls their friend Hernando, who describes hearing a commotion over the phone and someone yelling, "Get the F back here." He will later describe Gareth's behavior towards Amie as irate, verbally abusive, and distraught.
The first phone call, when she called, I couldn't hear. It was a lot of loud commotion. It was chaotic, so I couldn't understand, and I hung up. And then 30 seconds later, I received another phone call from her as well, and all I could hear amongst the chaos or the sounds that were sort of the loud sounds was, "Get the F over here."
And as you approached them, did you hear anything being said?
Initially seeing them walk away, I first checked in with my friend who called me, and she told me, "This guy is freaking out on your friend." So I then walked over to where the two of them had walked to, and they had...
When you say the two of them?
Dr. Amie and Gareth Perthhouse.
And then as you walked over there, what, if any, did you hear?
As I was walking towards them, the only words I heard was, "You ruined my life, you bitch."
On a bench away from the red carpet, Amie listens to him rant for 45 minutes. Her friends watch as she works hard to de-escalate the situation. Meanwhile, other photographers have noticed that something is up with Gareth. He's worn a red shirt that night, which was odd for a photographer to wear to an event. And he's been annoying the other photographers by darting back and forth along the red carpet rather than sticking to one spot. Which begs the question, did he know that Amie was going to be a panelist that night and accept the job for that reason? Later in the night, he approaches Amie's table and asks to speak to her again. Again, she takes him aside and listens. This time, he becomes hysterical. To Amie's friend, Robert Koshland, it's clear that he is unhinged. At one point, he falls to the ground and lies in the fetal position, wailing.
The defendant, Gareth Perthhouse, approached our table and knelt down next to Amie and spoke in her ear.
Could you hear what he was saying to her?
I could not.
And did anything happen as a result of that?
After they exchanged a quick conversation, she turned to me and said, "We're going to keep talking after the show."
So what happened?
So then the show ended, and she told me where she was going to be, which was the same bench, the same area where they were speaking before the show. And because that area had everyone leaving the ballroom was going to be walking by that area, it was very public, and she felt safe there, and we agreed that's where she would speak.
Afterwards, Amie goes over the details with Hernando. She is deeply rattled. She also confesses something spine-chilling. Gareth, she said, had been quoting texts that she had sent him verbatim from 8 years earlier.
Scared and worried she was going to be followed.
How do you know that?
She told me. And both her and I both looked in the side mirrors and turned our heads to make sure no one was following us outside of the parking structure.
Hernando himself is a therapist, and together they focus on making a safety plan for how she can protect herself. They talk about the option of a taser or even a gun, then pepper spray and changing the locks on the doors. She doesn't feel that he's done enough for her to go to the police, and the restraining order that she took out expired 2 years earlier. She does have a new roommate, however, and that's a comfort. Amie follows through on their plan. She buys mace and arranges to have a locksmith change the locks.
Getting a security system and cameras.
And do you know if she did that?
Yes, she did.
How do you know that?
Because we talked about it, and I referred an installer, and she bought the system that I saw.
Okay. Did she buy the Nest camera system?
Correct, that's what I had.
She tells Robert that if anything should happen to her, you know it's Gareth. She writes about how scared she is and contemplates that he is still obsessed with her even after 8 years. She is worried that he is a threat to her safety, and unfortunately, her instincts are correct. Within weeks, her dreams of creating a safe, deserving, and significant world for women will be cut short in the most horrific way possible. The day after their encounter at the event, Gareth finds Amie's number and begins messaging and calling her. Amie messages her friend Sarah Rollins. Gareth found my number and messaged me. He keeps texting and he sounds unstable.
Did she express to you how that interaction with her ex-boyfriend at that award show made her feel?
She was scared. I know she was scared.
And how do you know that she was scared?
She had spoken about things that he had previously done to her.
And without going into specifics, Ms. Rollins, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Go ahead. Motion to strike. Okay. Go ahead.
Now, without going into specifics about the past, did she express to you why she was, or how she was scared?
She was scared of what he might do to her, to harm her, or even her clients.
She definitely was concerned because he was really actively harassing her.
She humors him at first, but the intensity of his messages and voicemail pleas to meet escalates rapidly. She blocks his number. A week later, she records an episode of the podcast Datey Ladies. While off microphone, she tells the hosts that she is afraid of Gareth and is not sure how to protect herself. On January 29th, she posts a book recommendation on Facebook. The book is called Stay Safe and Don't Get Murdered, a title that shows where Amie's head was during the last weeks of her life. A few days later, she calls her parents to say that if she unexpectedly dies, she would like an open casket funeral and an elaborate headstone. 2 days before Valentine's Day, Amie texts Drew Carey asking if he will meet with her to talk. He agrees to meet with her after Valentine's Day and tells her that he loves her. Tragically, the two will never have that chance. Valentine's Day arrives and Gareth Pursehouse sends out a few tweets. He writes, "I can't figure out why gerrymandering isn't a federal crime," and other political statements. According to state prosecutors, at 9 p.m. that night, he makes his move. He arrives at Amie's house wearing gloves and dressed in black. At just after 1:02 a.m., Gareth attacks Amie. Her autopsy reveals defensive wounds on her arms and hands. The examination of Gareth will reveal various wounds on his body, likely caused during the struggle. Amie also has a pattern of broken blood vessels around her eyes and bruises on the neck, both of which are consistent with strangulation. Gareth strangled Amie before throwing her over the bedroom balcony, ending her life. At 10:59 a.m., just hours after murdering Amie, Gareth messages a woman he had met a few weeks earlier on Tinder, writing, "Good morning, sunshine." They spend the day together at Gareth's house. She notices he seems a little sad, a little distant, and that he has mysterious scratches and bruises on his face. He tells her that he had a bicycle accident the day before. Later that day, he posts on Twitter a response to a comedian who had written that he had received 400,000 views on his YouTube special in less than a week. He said, "I've been special since I was 5. No views." Late that afternoon, he and his date get into his car outside of the Playa del Rey home only to find themselves boxed in by unmarked police cars. Gareth is arrested and detained in front of his date and is formally charged with murder and burglary. Inside the house, police discover a syringe which is identical to the one they discovered at Amie's balcony. At his trial in September of 2023, 41-year-old Gareth pleads not guilty. His charges include the special circumstance allegation of lying in wait, making him eligible for the death penalty. His defense team argues that he had plunged into a deep depression after seeing Amie at the gala and had come to the house only to talk to her. The syringe of nicotine had been brought to end his own life, not hers, but he'd accidentally scared her into running and falling off of the balcony. The jury disagrees. They find Gareth Pursehouse guilty on all charges, including first-degree murder. Gareth will be sentenced on December 6th of this year. There is never closure in situations like this, says Amie's friend Robert Koshland, but at least justice was served today. Friends of Gareth struggle to reconcile the person they knew with the man who stalked, assaulted, and murdered Amie Harwick. For all those who knew and loved Amie, her loss leaves a void that can never be filled.
I would say it was like the sun was ripped from the sky.
There's nothing that he could do that would make any of it okay. This guy deserves a death penalty. That's my opinion on it.
They also ask themselves what they could have done differently and how much the system failed her. If a restraining order did not have an expiry date, she might be alive now. Her friends launched a petition called Justice for Amie to have domestic violence laws updated. They proposed an Amie's Law, which would toughen restraining orders imposed by the courts, introduce a stalker registry, and abolish expiration dates on restraining orders, only lifting the protections when a victim feels safe. At a concert a day after Amie's murder, her friend Tommy Vex from Bad Wolves made an emotional appeal to the audience.
Last night, around 2 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from a friend of mine that a girlfriend of mine back in LA, she was murdered. And my friend Amie Nicole, I've known for 14 years. I watched her go to school. I watched her become a doctor. She wrote her first book. She became a photographer. Everything that she touched, everything that she did was exemplary of the kind of person that she was. She cared about people. She helped a lot of people. And this is what she looks like. And I want you to look at this. I want you to hold on. I want you to look at this. This is very important. Amie was murdered by her ex-boyfriend. And we need to really talk about domestic violence. Amie's ex-boyfriend had a restraining order against him. She hadn't seen him in years. She ran into him at a party, and he dressed up in black, found out where she lived, broke into her home, and murdered her on Valentine's Day when she got home from work. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying this for a reason. If you're in a domestic violence relationship, whether you're a man or a woman, get the fuck out. No fake relationship. Abuse is not love. It's not love. And you have to reach inside of yourself and find your own self-worth. Because we only have one chance in this life, and every single person under this roof, every single living being in this world deserves to live a life of freedom and love.
If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below with your take, and please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.